For 30 years, humanity had been the galaxy's quiet neighbor. They smiled at everyone. They traded with everyone. They signed peace agreements with everyone. And everyone thought they were weak. Ambassador Linda Morrison had spent most of her career shaking hands with aliens who looked down at her. The Vectari delegates towered over her with their forearms and silver skin. The Kreth warriors bared their teeth in what passed for politeness among their kind. The gentle Solani wrapped their tentacles around her fingers and whispered kind words that meant nothing at all. She smiled at all of them. She thanked them for their time. She went back to Earth and filed her reports. The reports said the same thing every time. The galaxy was a dangerous place. The strong ate the weak. Diplomacy was just the pause between wars. And everyone, absolutely everyone, thought humans were prey. Linda did not correct them. The Galactic Assembly had records on every species. These records showed that humanity controlled 5 small colonies and 1 homeworld. The records showed that Earth maintained a defense force of about 200 ships. Most of these ships were old cargo haulers with guns attached to them. The records showed that humans spent very little money on their military. The records were lies. Every single one of them. And Linda had spent 30 years making sure nobody looked too closely. On the other side of the galaxy, Admiral Zethrak of the Kreth Dominion was looking at those same records. He was a large creature, even by Kreth standards. His scales were dark red, almost black. His eyes were yellow and cold. He had conquered 6 worlds in his career and killed more enemies than he could count. Now, he was looking for his next victory. The humans controlled 3 agricultural worlds that produced something called grain. The Kreth needed organic compounds for their food production. Their own farming worlds had been damaged by decades of war. They needed new sources. Zethrak could have asked the humans for a trade agreement. He could have offered them something in exchange. But that was not the Kreth way. The Kreth took what they wanted. They had always taken what they wanted. It was the only language the galaxy understood. He assembled a fleet of 800 warships. It was more than enough. The humans had 200 ships at most, and those ships were garbage. This would not be a war. It would be a harvest. His flagship, the Eternal Conquest, led the fleet into human space on a cold morning in February. Zethrak stood on his bridge and watched the stars slide past. His officers worked quietly around him. Everyone knew their jobs. Everyone was confident. The first human colony appeared on their sensors within 6 hours. It was a small world called Haven, covered in farms and small cities. Zethrak could see the tiny defense stations orbiting the planet. They were pathetic. A single Kreth cruiser could destroy them all. He was about to give the order to advance when his communication officer made a surprise sound. "Admiral," the officer said, "we are receiving a transmission. It is coming from... I'm not sure where it is coming from." Zethrak waved his hand. "Put it through." The main screen flickered. A human face appeared. It was a male, middle-aged, with short gray hair and calm eyes. He wore a uniform that Zethrak did not recognize. It was black with silver markings. The human did not look afraid. He did not look worried. He looked like someone who had been expecting this moment for a very long time. "Kreth Fleet," the human said. "This is Captain Daniel Hayes of Karen's Strategic Command. You have entered sovereign human territory without authorization. You have exactly 1 standard hour to reverse course. This is your only warning." Zethrak stared at the screen. Then he laughed. It was a harsh sound, like rocks grinding together. "1 hour?" he said. "Human Eye will be burning your colonies within 1 hour. Your tiny ships cannot stop me. Your pathetic defenses cannot stop me. Nothing can stop me." The human on the screen did not react. His expression did not change at all. 59 minutes, Admiral," he said. "I suggest you use them wisely." The screen went dark. Zethrak turned to his officers. They were looking at each other with confusion. None of them understood what was happening. The humans were supposed to surrender. They were supposed to beg for mercy. They were not supposed to give ultimatums. Continue the advance, Zethrak ordered. Maximum speed. I want to see their faces when we arrive. His fleet moved forward. 800 warships, armed with the best weapons the Creth Dominion could build. 800 crews ready for battle. 800 captains eager for glory. Zethrak watched the timer count down. 50 minutes. 40 minutes. 30 minutes. The human colony grew larger on his screen. He could see the lights of cities now. He could see the ships fleeing toward the far side of the planet. Running, he thought. Like prey always runs out at 20 minutes, his sensor officer spoke again. Her voice sounded strange. Admiral, she said, I am detecting something unusual. What is it? I am not certain. There appears to be some kind of energy distortion directly ahead of us. It is very large. Zethrak frowned. Show me. The main screen changed to show the space ahead of the fleet. At first, Zethrak saw nothing. Just empty space and distant stars. Then he noticed something strange. A section of space seemed to be shimmering. It was like looking at water on a hot day, when the air itself seemed to bend and wave. The shimmer was growing. What is that? Zethrak demanded. Nobody answered. Nobody knew. The shimmer spread across the screen. It covered everything. And then, slowly, it began to fade. As it faded, Zethrak saw something that stopped his heart. Ships everywhere. They filled the screen from edge to edge. They were enormous. The smallest of them was larger than his flagship. The largest of them was larger than anything Zethrak had ever seen in his life. There were hundreds of them. Thousands of them. They hung in space like mountains, silent and dark and impossibly huge. Zethrak could not speak. He could not move. He could only stare at the screen as the numbers appeared beside each ship. The computer was trying to count them. It was trying to calculate their firepower. The numbers kept climbing. They would not stop climbing. His communication officer made a small sound. It might have been a whimper. The screen flickered again. Captain Daniel Hayes appeared once more. He looked exactly the same as before. Calm, patient, unsurprised. 15 minutes remaining, Admiral, he said. I hope you are reconsidering your plans. Zethrak finally found his voice. It came out as a whisper. What? What is this? Captain Hayes almost smiled. Almost. This, Admiral, is Terran Home Fleet, one of 12. He paused to let that sink in. One of 12. The screen went dark again. Zethrak stood on his bridge, surrounded by his officers, and felt something he had not felt in decades. He felt afraid. The galaxy had just changed. Everything he knew about humanity was wrong. Everything the Creth Dominion knew about humanity was wrong. And somewhere out there, in the cold silence of space, 12 fleets waited for his answer. Captain Daniel Hayes sat in his command chair and watched the Creth fleet on his screen. He could see their ships clearly now. 800 vessels arranged in a perfect attack formation. They had stopped moving. They were just floating there, waiting, trying to understand what had happened to them. Hayes understood. He had been preparing for this moment his entire career. Around him, the bridge of the TSS Resolute hummed with quiet activity. His crew worked at their stations without speaking. They did not need to speak. They had trained for years. They knew exactly what to do and when to do it. Lieutenant Amy Grant sat at the tactical station to his right. She was young, only 26, but she was one of the best tactical officers in the fleet. Her fingers moved across her console as she tracked every Creth ship, every weapon, every possible threat. Their weapons are still armed, she reported, but they have not locked onto any targets. Hayes nodded. They are thinking. Let them think. On the main screen, the Creth fleet looked very small. Terran Home Fleet surrounded them on all sides. The human ships were arranged in a sphere, with the Kreth trapped in the center. If Zethrak gave the order to attack, his entire fleet would be destroyed in seconds. He had to know that the question was whether he was smart enough to accept it. Hayes thought about the years that had led to this moment. He had joined the Terran Navy when he was 18 years old. That was 24 years ago. For all those years, he had served in secret. His family thought he worked on cargo ships. His friends thought he was a merchant captain. Nobody knew the truth except the people who needed to. No, the truth was that humanity had been preparing for war since the day they discovered they were not alone in the universe. Hayes remembered learning about first contact in his history classes. In 2147, a human exploration ship had encountered a Sulani vessel near the edge of the solar system. The meeting had been peaceful. The Sulani were gentle creatures who wanted nothing more than trade and friendship. They had welcomed humanity into the galactic community with open arms. But the Sulani had also warned them. The galaxy was not a safe place. There were predators out there. Species like the Kreth, who took what they wanted by force. Species like the Victari, who believed that strength was the only thing that mattered. The Sulani survived by being useful to everyone and threatening to no one. Humanity had listened carefully. And then humanity had made a choice. They would not be prey. They would not be victims. They would prepare in secret, build their strength in silence, and wait. Wait until someone forced their hand. Wait until they had no choice but to reveal what they truly were. That day had finally come. Hayes looked at the timer on his screen. 10 minutes remaining. The Kreth had 10 minutes to make their decision. His communication officer, a quiet man named Peter Walsh, spoke up from his station. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the Kreth flagship." "Put it through." Admiral Zethrak appeared on the screen. He looked different than before. His yellow eyes were wide. His red scales had turned pale. He was afraid. Hayes could see it clearly. The great Kreth conqueror was terrified. "Captain Hayes," Zethrak said. His voice was hoarse. "I would like to discuss terms." Hayes kept his expression neutral. "There are no terms to discuss, Admiral. You will withdraw from human space immediately. You will return to the Kreth Dominion. You will never threaten our colonies again. These are not requests. These are facts." Zethrak's jaw tightened. Hayes could see the struggle in his eyes. The Kreth did not surrender. The Kreth did not retreat. It went against everything they believed. But the Kreth also did not commit suicide. And that was exactly what an attack would be. "How?" Zethrak finally asked. "How did you hide this? Our intelligence services watched your species for 30 years. We saw your ships. We counted your weapons. None of this was supposed to exist." Hayes almost smiled. "You saw what we wanted you to see, Admiral. Nothing more. Nothing less. But why? Why pretend to be weak when you were strong?" Hayes considered the question. It deserved an honest answer. "Because we were not sure we could trust you," he said. "Any of you. The galaxy is full of species who destroy anything they cannot control. We needed time. Time to build. Time to prepare. Time to make sure that when we finally showed ourselves, nobody would be able to threaten us ever again." He leaned forward slightly. "We are showing ourselves now, Admiral. Look around you. Look at what humanity has built in secret. Look at what we are capable of. And then ask yourself a simple question. Do you really want to be our enemy?" Zethrak stared at him for a long moment. Behind the Admiral, Hayes could see Kreth officers working frantically at their stations. They were probably calculating the odds. They were probably realizing that there were no odds. "Not anymore. We will withdraw," Zethrak said quietly. The words seemed to cause him physical pain. Hayes nodded. "A wise choice. You have 5 minutes. Use them." The screen went dark. Lieutenant Grant looked up from her console. "Sir, the Kreth fleet is turning around. They are moving toward the edge of human space. Track them until they cross the border. I want to make sure they actually leave. Yes, sir. Hayes sat back in his chair and allowed himself a small breath of relief. The first test was over. Humanity had passed. But he knew this was only the beginning. The Kreth would tell everyone what had happened here. The entire galaxy would learn the truth about humanity. Within days, everything was about to change. His thoughts were interrupted by another transmission. This one came from Earth, from the office of Admiral Patricia Cole herself. She appeared on his private screen, her face serious. Captain Hayes, well done. Thank you, Admiral. The Kreth are withdrawing. I know. The entire command structure is watching. She paused. You understand what happens now. Hayes nodded. The galaxy will know. Everyone will know. Yes, 30 years of deception ended in a single hour. Cole shook her head slowly. I hope we made the right choice. We did not have a choice, Admiral. Zethrak forced our hand. Perhaps. But now we have to live with the consequences. She straightened in her chair. Ambassador Morrison is preparing to address the Galactic Assembly. She will explain everything. Our true military strength. Our reasons for hiding. Our plans for the future. Hayes thought about that. He thought about all the species who had looked down on humanity for 30 years. All the diplomats who had smiled at them with pity. All the warriors who had dismissed them as weak and harmless. None of them were smiling now. The galaxy fell silent today, Hayes said quietly. When they saw our ships, when they understood what we had hidden, everything went quiet. I could feel it. Even Zethrak stopped talking. Cole nodded. Silence is good. Silence means they are thinking. Silence means they are afraid to make the wrong move. And what if they decide to move against us anyway? What if they form an alliance? Cole smiled. It was not a kind smile. Then they will learn something else about humanity, Captain. Something we did not show them today. What is that? That we have been preparing for that possibility too. For every possibility. She leaned closer to the screen. Humanity does not bluff, Captain Hayes. We never have. We simply wait until the time is right. The screen went dark, and Hayes was alone with his thoughts. Outside his ship, the stars burned in the endless darkness of space. Somewhere out there, 800 Kreth warships were running away as fast as they could. The galaxy had fallen silent. Hayes wondered how long the silence would last. The Galactic Assembly Chamber was the largest building in the known universe. It floated in space at the center of neutral territory, far from any homeworld. 1,000 species sent their representatives here. 1,000 voices argued and debated and made deals in its hallways. On a normal day, the chamber was filled with noise, shouting, laughter, the constant buzz of translation devices turning alien languages into something everyone could understand. Today, the chamber was silent. Ambassador Linda Morrison stood at the human delegation's podium and looked out at a sea of faces. Some of those faces had eyes. Some had sensors. Some had things she could not name. But all of them were pointed at her. All of them were waiting to hear what she would say. She had prepared this speech for 30 years. She had practiced it in her head 1,000 times. And now, finally, she was going to deliver it. You have questions, she began. Her voice was steady. It carried easily through the silent chamber. Let me start with the most important one. Yes, we lied to you. For 30 years, we made you believe we were weak. This was not an accident. It was a plan. A murmur ran through the chamber. Some of the delegates leaned forward. Others pulled back. A few of them looked angry. Most of them just looked shocked. Morrison continued without pause. When humanity first came to the stars, we were afraid. Not of the dark. Not of the distance. We were afraid of you. She let that word hang in the air. Our history is not like yours. We come from a world where we spent thousands of years killing each other. We invented weapons before we invented medicine. We learned to fight before we learned to farm. War is in our blood. It is part of who we are. The holographic display behind her came to life. Images appeared. Ancient battles. Medieval castles. Cannons firing. Soldiers charging. Mushroom clouds rising over ruined cities. This is what humans do to each other, Morrison said. Imagine what we thought when we discovered we were not alone. Imagine how we felt when we learned that the galaxy was full of species who also believed in conquest, who also took what they wanted by force. The images changed. Now they showed construction yards hidden inside asteroid belts, factories buried deep underground, training facilities carved into the hearts of dead moons. We could not trust you, Morrison said simply. We wanted to. Some of us argued that we should reveal ourselves immediately, that we should join the galactic community as equals. But we could not take that risk. The stakes were too high. Our entire species was at risk. She paused to let the delegates absorb her words. So we hid. We built our ships in secret. We trained our soldiers in silence. We created technology that nobody would ever see until we chose to show it. And we watched. We watched everything you did. Every war. Every treaty. Every betrayal. A Victari delegate rose from his seat. He was tall, with 4 arms and silver skin that glinted under the chamber's lights. Ambassador Morrison, he said, are you saying that humanity has been spying on us? On all of us? Morrison met his gaze without flinching. Yes, for 30 years. We know things about your species that you have forgotten. We know the weaknesses in your defenses. We know the secrets you governments keep from their own people. We know everything. The chamber erupted. Voices shouted in a dozen languages. Delegates turned to each other with fear and anger on their faces. Some of them looked like they wanted to attack the human delegation right there. Morrison raised her hand. Slowly, the noise died down. I am not telling you this to threaten you, she said. I am telling you this so you understand. Humanity is not what you thought we were. We are not prey. We are not victims. We are something else entirely. She took a step forward. The Kreth Dominion sent 800 warships to attack our colonies yesterday. They thought we were defenseless. They thought we would surrender. Instead, they met Terran Home Fleet. The holographic display changed again. Now it showed the confrontation from the day before. The massive human ships surrounding the tiny Kreth fleet. The numbers climbing on the tactical displays. The scale of what humanity had hidden becoming clear for the first time. 144 combat fleets, Morrison said. That is what humanity has built in 30 years. Our smallest ships are larger than anything the Victari possess. Our weapons make Kreth technology look like toys. We could destroy any species in this chamber. All of you together could not stop us. The silence that followed was absolute. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Nobody even seemed to breathe. Morrison softened her voice. But we do not want to destroy anyone. We never did. Everything we built was for defense. Everything we hid was for protection. We wanted to be left alone. We wanted our children to grow up safe. We wanted to live without fear. She looked around the chamber, meeting as many eyes as she could. The Kreth took that choice away from us. When Admiral Zethrak brought his fleet into our space, he forced us to reveal ourselves. Now you all know the truth. Humanity is powerful. Humanity is dangerous. And humanity is tired of pretending otherwise. A Solani delegate raised a tentacle. She was small, with purple skin and gentle eyes. The Solani had always been kind to humans. They had welcomed them into the galaxy 30 years ago. Ambassador, the Solani said, what do you want from us? Now that we know what you are, what do you expect us to do? Morrison smiled. It was a genuine smile, warm and sad at the same time. We want peace, she said. Real peace. Not the kind where everyone waits for the next war. Not the kind where the strong prey on the weak. We want a galaxy where species can live without fear, where children can grow up without learning to fight. She gestured at the holographic display. Humanity has the power to force this peace. We could conquer every world in this chamber. We could make you obey through fear. But that is not what we want. That would make us no better than the Kreth. She straightened her shoulders. Instead, we offer you a choice. Join us, work with us, help us build something better. A true alliance. A real community. Not based on fear, but on trust. The Vivectari delegate spoke again. And if we refuse? Morrison's smile faded. Then we will protect ourselves. Anyone who threatens humanity will face consequences. Anyone who attacks our people will discover exactly how far we are willing to go to defend them. The Kreth learned that lesson yesterday. I hope nobody else needs to learn it the hard way. She stepped back from the podium. You have time to decide. We are not going anywhere. We have waited 30 years already. We can wait a little longer. But understand this. The galaxy changed yesterday. The old rules no longer apply. The old power structures no longer exist. Humanity is here now. Really here. And nothing will ever be the same. She turned and walked off the stage. Behind her, the chamber remained silent. 1,000 species watched her go. 1,000 minds tried to process what they had just heard. The galaxy had fallen silent. And in that silence, the future waited to be written. In the weeks that followed Ambassador Morrison's speech, the galaxy tried to understand what had happened. Intelligence agencies on 100 worlds worked day and night. They went through their files on humanity. They examined every report, every photograph, every piece of data they had collected over 30 years. All of it was useless. All of it was exactly what the humans had wanted them to see. Director Kethvol of Vectari Intelligence sat in his office and stared at his screens. He had spent his entire career studying other species. He had uncovered secrets that had toppled governments. He had predicted wars before they started. He was the best intelligence officer the Vectari had ever produced, and he had completely missed humanity. How? He asked nobody in particular. How did they do it? His assistant, a young female named Saren, stood by the door. She had been bringing him reports all day. None of them made him feel better. They were patient, she said quietly. They showed us exactly what we expected to see. Weak ships. Small armies. Limited technology. We believed it because it made sense. Because it fit what we thought we knew about young species. Kethvol shook his head. But the scale of their deception. The coordination required. Every human we met, every document we found, every signal we intercepted. All of it was fake. All of it was planned. Yes, sir. Do you understand what that means? For 30 years, every single human being we encountered was lying to us. Traitors, scientists, diplomats, all of them. They never broke character. Not once. Saren did not respond. There was nothing to say. On the Kreth homeworld, things were much worse. Admiral Zethrak stood before his emperor in the great throne room. The room was dark, lit only by the red glow of the eternal flame that burned behind the throne. The emperor was old, his scales almost white with age. But his eyes were still sharp. His voice was still strong. "You ran," the emperor said. The words were like poison. "You took 800 ships into human space, and you ran." Zethrak kept his head low. "Great Emperor, I had no choice. You have seen the reports. You know what we faced. I have seen the reports. I have watched the recordings. I have counted the human ships." The Emperor's claws scraped against the arm of his throne. 12 fleets. 144 in total. Any one of them could destroy our entire military. Yes, Great Emperor. For 30 years we dismissed them. We laughed at them. We called them prey. The Emperor's voice dropped to a whisper. They were watching us the entire time. Learning our weaknesses. Preparing for this moment. Zethrak finally looked up. What would you have me do, Great Emperor? Should I have attacked? Should I have sacrificed 800 ships to save my pride? The Emperor was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was tired. No, you made the right choice. A foolish attack would have given them an excuse to destroy us completely. He leaned back in his throne. The humans showed mercy yesterday. They let you go. They let all of you go. Why would they do that? Because they are not like us. The Emperor closed his eyes. They could have killed you. They could have sent their fleets to burn our worlds. Instead, they sent a warning. They showed us what they could do, and then they let us run. Zethrak thought about that. He thought about Captain Hayes, sitting calmly on his bridge while the greatest fleet in Kreth history turned and ran. The human had not gloated. He had not threatened. He had simply stated facts and waited for Zethrak to accept them. They are patient, Zethrak said. That is what scares me most. They waited 30 years. They could have revealed themselves at any time. But they waited until we forced their hand. Yes, the Emperor agreed. And now we must ask ourselves a question. What else are they waiting for? What other plans do they have that we cannot see? There was no answer. There never would be. On Earth, Captain Daniel Hayes returned to a world that wanted to call him a hero. News reporters waited outside his home. Politicians wanted to shake his hand. Children sent him letters thanking him for keeping them safe. Hayes ignored all of it. He did not feel like a hero. He had followed orders. He had done his job. The real heroes were the people who had built Terran's strategic command from nothing. The scientists who had invented the cloaking technology. The engineers who had constructed the ships. The thousands of men and women who had kept the secret for 30 years. Most of them were dead now. They had lived their lives in silence and died without recognition. Nobody would ever know their names. Hayes met with Admiral Patricia Cole in her office on a cold Tuesday afternoon. The office looked out over San Francisco Bay. Through the window, Hayes could see cargo ships moving across the water. Normal ships. The kind that everyone could see. The Victari have requested a meeting, Cole said. She was reading from a tablet, scrolling through endless diplomatic messages. They want to discuss a non-aggression pact. The Solani are offering to host peace talks. The Marathi Collective wants to know if we will accept their ambassador. Hayes sat in a chair across from her desk. Everyone wants to be our friend now. Everyone is afraid of us now. There is a difference, is there? Cole put down her tablet and looked at him. You did well, Daniel. The situation could have gone badly. Zethrak could have attacked anyway. His pride might have overcome his common sense. I thought about that, Hayes admitted. I was ready for it. I know you were. But he made the smart choice. Now we have to figure out what comes next. Hayes looked out the window. We spent 30 years hiding, building, preparing for the worst. Now the worst has happened. What do? We do what Ambassador Morrison promised. We try to build something better. Cole stood up and walked to the window. The galaxy is going to change, Daniel. The old powers are falling. The Kreth will never threaten anyone again. The Victari are seeking allies instead of subjects. Even the peaceful species are looking at us with new eyes. They are afraid. Yes, but fear can become respect. Respect can become trust. It will take time. It will take work. But it is possible. Hayes was not sure he believed that. He had spent his whole career preparing for war. Peace was something other people worried about, but maybe that was the point. Maybe the soldiers had done their part. Maybe it was time for the diplomats to take over. What about the other fleets? He asked. The ones we did not reveal. The weapons we did not show. Cole smiled grimly. They stay hidden. For now. The galaxy knows we are strong. They do not need to know exactly how strong. So we are still keeping secrets. Of course. Humanity has always kept secrets. It is how we survived. It is how we will continue to survive. She turned to face him. The galaxy fell silent when they saw a Terran home fleet. Imagine how silent they would be if they knew the rest. Hayes thought about the other projects. The ones buried so deep that even most of Terran Command did not know about them. Weapons that could destroy stars. Shields that could protect entire planets. Technology that made the home fleet look like children's toys. Humanity had been very busy for 30 years. Do you think we will ever have to use them? He asked. Cole did not answer immediately. She looked out at the bay, at the peaceful water, and the normal ships, and the city full of people who had no idea what their government had built in their name. I hope not, she said finally. I hope this is enough. I hope that showing our strength once will be enough to keep the peace forever. She paused. But if it is not, if someone forces our hand again, we will be ready. We will always be ready. Outside the window, the sun was setting over the Pacific Ocean. The sky burned red and orange and gold. It was beautiful. It was peaceful. But somewhere out there, in the darkness between stars, humanity's fleets waited in silence, watching, protecting, ready for whatever came next. 6 months had passed since the revelation. The galaxy was not the same place anymore. The Kreth Dominion, once the most feared power in known space, had become quiet. Their conquest fleets sat in orbit around their homeworld, gathering dust. Their warriors trained for battles that would never come. For the first time in 300 years, the Kreth borders were peaceful. No raids, no invasions, no threats. Everyone knew why. The Vectari, proud rulers of 12 star systems, had signed humanity's proposed treaty. It was a simple document. No aggressive wars. No unprovoked attacks. Any species that violated these rules would face a unified response. Everyone knew what unified response meant. The Solani signed next. Then the Marathi Collective. Then the Fenari Union. Then 17 more species. Within 3 months, more than half the galaxy had agreed to humanity's terms. The other half was still thinking about it. They would sign eventually. Everyone would sign eventually. Because the alternative was unthinkable. Ambassador Linda Morrison stood before the Galactic Assembly once more. The chamber was full, as it always was. But the atmosphere was different now. 6 months ago, the delegates had looked at her with pity. Now they looked at her with respect. Or fear. Sometimes it was hard to tell the difference. Thank you all for coming, she said. Her voice was calm, as always. I know the past 6 months have been difficult. Everything you thought you knew about the galaxy has changed. Everything you believed about power and strength and survival has been proven wrong. She paused to let her words sink in. 30 years ago, humanity entered this community as strangers. We were small. We were unknown. We were afraid. We built our strength in secret because we could not trust anyone. We hid our true nature because we did not know what else to do. She walked to the center of the stage. But hiding was never our goal. We did not want to spend forever in the shadows. We wanted to be part of something larger. We wanted to contribute to the galaxy, not conquer it. We wanted peace. A Kreth delegate sat in the back of the chamber. He was young, much younger than Zethrak. His name was Vorn, and he was the new face of Kreth diplomacy. The Emperor had sent him here to learn, to watch, to understand. Vorn listened to Morrison's words and tried to make sense of them. The Kreth did not think this way. For his species, strength existed to be used. Power existed to be demonstrated. You did not hide your weapons. You showed them to everyone so they would know to be afraid. But the humans were different. They had hidden their weapons for 30 years. They had let everyone think they were weak. And when they finally revealed themselves, they had not attacked. They had simply waited for everyone else to understand that it was a strange way to fight. Vorn was not sure if it was brilliant or insane. Morrison continued her speech. The treaty we have proposed is not about human dominance. It is about shared responsibility. Every species that signs agrees to the same rules. No aggressive wars. No unprovoked attacks. Disputes will be settled through negotiation, not violence. She looked around the chamber. Some of you are wondering what happens if someone breaks these rules. The answer is simple. We will respond. Not just humanity. All of us. Together. Any species that attacks another will face the combined force of every treaty member. A Vectari delegate raised his hand. Ambassador Morrison, you speak of combined force. But we all know that humanity's military power far exceeds anyone else's. Are you not simply making rules that you can enforce while we watch? Morrison smiled. That is a fair question. Yes, humanity is strong. Yes, we could enforce these rules ourselves. But that is not what we want. We want partners, not subjects. We want allies, not servants. She walked back to her podium. Over the next few years, we will share some of our technology with treaty members. Defensive technology, shields, sensors, communication systems. We will help you protect yourselves. We will help you feel safe without needing to conquer your neighbors. The chamber buzzed with surprised voices. This was new. Nobody had expected humanity to share anything. Why? Someone called out. Why would you give away your advantages? Morrison's expression grew serious. Because advantages do not matter if everyone is dead. Because the galaxy cannot survive if we all keep trying to destroy each other. Because we have seen what happens when species fight forever. We have seen it in our own history. She touched a control on her podium. The holographic display came to life behind her. It showed Earth, not the beautiful blue planet that everyone knew, but something else. Images of destruction. Cities burning. Oceans poisoned. Skies dark with ash. This is what we almost did to ourselves, Morrison said. Twice. We came close to destroying our own world. Twice we pulled back from the edge. We learned something from those experiences. We learned that strength without wisdom leads to extinction. She turned off the display. Humanity is offering you our wisdom. It was purchased with blood and fire and millions of dead. It cost us more than you can imagine. But we are willing to share it because we believe the galaxy can be better. We believe you can be better. She stepped away from the podium. The choice is yours. Sign the treaty and join us. Build something new together. Or refuse and watch while the galaxy slowly tears itself apart. She looked at the Kreth delegate. Your ancestors chose violence. They chose conquest. Look where it brought them. Alone, afraid, surrounded by species who remember every wrong they suffered. Vorn felt her eyes on him. He wanted to look away. He could not. There is another path, Morrison said softly. It is harder. It requires trust. It requires patience. It requires admitting that the old ways were wrong. But it leads somewhere better. Somewhere safe. Somewhere where your children can grow up without learning to fight. She walked off the stage. The chamber was silent. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Then, slowly, Vorn stood up. Every eye in the chamber turned to him. The young Kreth diplomat walked to the center of the floor. His hands were shaking, but his voice was steady. The Kreth Dominion will sign the treaty, he said. We have been conquerors for 300 years. We have brought pain and death to 100 worlds. Our ancestors believed this was the only way. They were wrong. He looked at Morrison, who had stopped near the exit. We are tired of being feared. We are tired of being hated. We are tired of watching our children die in wars that accomplish nothing. He took a deep breath. Humanity has shown us that there is another way. We would like to try it. The chamber erupted. Voices shouted in disbelief. The Kreth signing a peace treaty? The Kreth admitting they were wrong? It was impossible. It was unthinkable, but it was happening. Morrison smiled. For the first time in 30 years, it was a genuine smile. A hopeful smile. Thank you, Delegate Vorn, she said. Welcome to the future. That night, Captain Daniel Hayes watched the news from his apartment in San Francisco. He saw Vaughan signing the treaty. He saw Morrison shaking hands with diplomats from a dozen species. He saw the celebrations in the streets of Earth and the confused reactions on alien worlds. The galaxy had fallen silent 6 months ago. Now it was starting to speak again. But the language was different. The words were different. For the first time in history, the galaxy was talking about peace. Hayes turned off the screen and walked to his window. The stars were visible above the city lights. Somewhere out there, Terran home fleets still waited. 12 fleets. Thousands of ships. Ready for anything. But maybe, just maybe, they would never be needed. Hayes had spent his whole life preparing for war. He had trained for it. He had believed in it. He had thought it was inevitable. Now he was not so sure. The galaxy had fallen silent when humanity revealed its power. But silence was not the same as peace. Silence was just the absence of noise. Peace was something you had to build. Humanity was building it now. One treaty at a time. One handshake at a time. One former enemy at a time. It would take years. Maybe decades. Maybe longer. But Hayes was starting to believe it was possible. For the first time in his life, he was starting to believe that the future might be better than the past. Outside his window, the stars burned quietly in the darkness. The galaxy was full of species who had spent their existence fighting and dying and destroying. Now they were trying something new. They were trying to trust each other. It was the hardest thing any of them had ever done. But it was also the most important. And somewhere, in the silence between stars, 144 human fleets watched over them, protecting them, giving them time to learn, time to grow, time to become something better than they had ever been before. The galaxy had fallen silent, and in that silence, hope was finally taking root.